Hey, gang. So here we go. We got the new roadmap roundup numbers, kind of as promised. Didn't really plan on doing these back to back, but like I said last week, the editing with all of the CitizenCon stuff kind of got backed up. Now we got IAE a couple weeks away, and I will probably be out for that one, unfortunately. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the roadmap roundup here. We got all the new numbers, so let's get this. Okay, I just did this a couple days ago, so I guess I've got a little bit of practice in for this one. So the caveats up first. Actually, I'll give you a little overview of what I usually do. Usually I read the roadmap roundup, go into the release view, see what's changed. This time there's a fair number of things, and then I go through the progress tracker, which is where the meat of the thing is. The one thing that I'm going to do on the progress tracker, usually I kind of do a deeper dive on the progress tracker and kind of go into a bunch of details of changes that I'm seeing and big items that I think most people are interested in, just kind of give my thoughts on where they are in the process. In this case, I'm going to kind of focus on what I think will probably be dropping in the next 5 months. So between now and March, which is typically their Invictus drop, their first military patch. We know quite a bit more now because they have actually dropped 3.22 on us, the numbers in the release view. So we'll go through that. So that's pretty much it for the overview of what this is. Now for the caveats. First caveat that I like to start out with is I am just a dude on the internet. So like the vast majority of content creators, I'm pretty much just listening to sources, reading posts, reading through the data that I'm seeing here, and drawing my own conclusions. And you are free to draw your own conclusions. I do not have any inside sources or friends at CIG. So, yeah, I am just a dude on the internet. Caveat number 2 is that when I'm going through the progress tracker, just because something is 100% complete on the progress tracker does not mean that's immediately dropping into our hands. It just means that all the planned sprints that they have wrapped up for now. They might have more work coming. And on the same token, like additional derelict settlements down here, the work might be ongoing, but we actually get pieces of it as they go. So they roll it out in chunks. So both of those can be true. They can still be doing work on something that's released, and they could not be releasing something that looks like it's done, but clearly has a lot more time to go. So let's go ahead and get into the roadmap roundup. So here we go. Notable changes for November 1st, 2023. Progress tracker. The following deliverables, previously marked unannounced, have been revealed on the progress tracker. This one's kind of interesting because there's another big concept out there that I guess they're dropping for IAE. Drake Cutter Scout, building, balancing, and implementing Drake Interplanetary's reconnaissance ship, the Cutter Scout, into the game. RSI Zeus Mark II, building, balancing, and implementing RSI's small multi-crew ship, the Zeus Mark II, into the game, roughly size of a freelancer. For my own plans, I was debating getting the combat version, which has an extra turret and an EMP and a quantum snare, quantum dampener field. I think what I'm going to do instead is get the EN, which is the Explorer version. And then if I really like the ship, I can CCU up to the military version for like $35 or so, which would be worth it. It's a cool looking ship. And kind of depending on how my own plans go, like if I can crew up my Banu Merchantman, all of this is moot and somebody else will be flying my Zeus, or I'll just melt them all and get a Kraken or something, who knows. But if the Grand Banu Merchantman with crew plan doesn't pan out, something like the Zeus might be a good backup plan. Release view. The following card has been added to the 3.21 column on the release view, targeting a 321.1 release. So we're going to get one between now and 322, which suggests that 322 is probably going to be their December patch, which means despite what we're about to see, should be pretty easygoing. New missions, data heist. Implementing missions that task players with infiltrating locations, often held by NPCs, that's interesting, reaching data stores, and setting data to upload to off-site handlers. Cool. The following cards have been added to the release view, targeting a release for Q4 in Alpha 3.22. That'll be the December patch. Player hair update. So the 321.1 is probably going to be the IAE patch, which means that even though data heist is the only thing they're showing there, they're always going to have a couple ships. We know the Cutter Expedition version is out there. And I suspect there's a bigger ship. They almost always drop a bigger ship on us at IAE. But coming in Q4, 322, which I suspect is the December patch, player hair update. Updating Star Citizen's character customizer with 20 hairstyles from Squadron 42. This includes long hair, tied hair, and updates to existing short hair styles. Badly needed. Salvage, structural, this is big. Implementing the ability to transform large chunks of metal salvaged from ships into refinable material. This will use the grinder systems aboard salvage ships like the Vulture and the Reclaimer. That was vehicle munching, but I think vehicle munching will be actually cutting the ship apart and doing this part. So they might be doing an interim step where, for whatever reason, they're doing the second part first. I don't know. Maybe they're having problems with cutting up the ships, would be my guess. Inventory, cargo containers. This feature will allow players to store items in smaller cargo containers in larger cargo containers. So you'll be able to open up the big cargo containers and put stuff in them. Apoa Santokii. This is interesting because I thought this Santokii would probably be coming next year. It just looked like they were stretching it out. But building, balancing, and implementing Apoa's medium fighter, the Santokii, into the game. Origin X1, Velocity, and Force. These are the three different versions. The X1 is kind of the standard version. Velocity is the racer, which doesn't have a gun. And the Force is a little bit slower than the other two, but has a little more armor. And I think it comes with a size 2 gun. I could be wrong on that. It might just come with a different type of gun. I don't know. But that's it for the roadmap roundup. Let's go to the release view and see what we see. So the only places where they added were, we know retrieve consignment is on there. Ship trespass is a big one that they didn't mention there. Basically, if you go on someone else's ship and you're not part of their party, they can shoot you down and not get a crime stat for it. So I could see a couple honeypot things being created about that. Be a little bit more careful about going to ship gatherings. We'll put it that way. The A1 Spirit is released. The C1 Spirit is now in the PTU for the people that are dropping in there. The tractor beam on it is apparently working pretty well. I have not played around with it. Good amount of cargo room. I saw on, damn, and I can't remember his name, so I can't give him credit, but somebody was stacking up Mariah Furies in there, and they could fit 3 of them in the back of that thing. So cargo capacity and the way it's laid out is very clean. You can fit vehicles in there. Tumbrel Stank looks pretty good. They're committed, so they must think it could get in there pretty well. Argo SRV. So as suspected, I think it is in the PTU now. I've seen it flying around, but I heard somewhere that the sounds aren't quite working or something like that, which makes sense because it doesn't look like the audio team has made their pass. But we'll take a look at it when we go through the progress tracker. Drake Cutter Scout. I actually picked up a CCU to one of these from my regular cutter, which was, I think, a $5 SCU. It's a cool little ship. I love this little ship. It's like a little dump truck, but very cute. Can't believe I said it was cute. It's effective. It's an efficient ship. Replication layer update. So this is pretty much what I wouldn't even say next year, but this entire project is reliant on replication layer and server tech happening. Like, if you want to know why NPCs aren't working right, if you want to know why Tony Z wasn't at SitCon, this is why. Like, until the servers have all the pressure taken off of them because they're bouncing into other servers and they can kind of spin them up and spin them down, that is what this project is waiting on. Let's go to 3.22. So they say tentative Q4. Usually it's a mid-December patch. I think they try to roll it out prior to Christmas time or right around there. But player hair update. So the 22 hairstyles, I think that's pretty close to what we have now, but it's the new hair, the one they showed off in SitCon. Salvage structural, transform large chunks of metal from salvage ships into refinable materials. So I'm assuming you'll have to strip off the skin and then you can tear up the ship. Inventory cargo containers. Impose Tokyo. And again, this didn't used to be the case even like mid-pandemic, but it is now. Basically, it took Aaron about a year to change how they did this release view, but now they don't put something on here unless it's pretty much done and they've just entered polishing, which that was kind of Aaron's role at CIG, is kind of the no BS project manager, get the ship going. And yeah, with the release view, it's far more reliable. That it used to just kind of be a joke that all of this was just hopium, that they'd just throw a bunch of things on here, and by the time the patch actually rolled out, almost none of those things would be on there, and it would be completely different things, and usually it would be padding and people would be upset. Nowadays, they only throw things on the release view that they're positive they can get out. So let's pop over to the progress tracker, see what I think they're going to be working on for the foreseeable future, for the next few months anyway. Actor status 2. So these are ones that we saw some elements from SitCon. You can sort of see that work has stopped, but work definitely hasn't stopped on this. Hygiene was probably the big one, but you can sort of see that a lot of these are kind of wrapped up in NPC status and NPC things. So I think what's happening here, and I'll get to this a little bit later when I talk about the quantum simulation, I think they've kind of put a pin in a lot of these NPC-driven actions and activities until they get server meshing up and running. So the same people are probably working on those things just to kind of hook in all the existing NPC and AI behaviors as server meshing comes on, just to make sure it's all working. So things like actor status 2 and the quantum simulation are taking a back seat to getting those things working. I think that is why Tony was not giving his usual quantum update in SitCon. And for those who don't know, the quantum simulation is the sort of engine within an engine that's going to be running all of the background economy and the interactions with all the NPCs except maybe the mission givers in the entire verse. So it's an extremely complex program, sort of made to roll with a dynamic economy effectively. But I think it's waiting on the server tech, and I think that getting existing NPCs functioning correctly, so not walking in circles or T-posing on chairs or ignoring you while you're shooting them, that is what they're working on now, and then they'll switch focus once the server meshing is up and running. So let's roll on down. So AI, that's kind of what I was getting at, is all of these AI actions. The only reason that I have this one open isn't because AI arcade machine is hugely important. It's more just the first of the AI lineup. These are all the actions the AI will eventually do, just to kind of make them feel realistic. And these are all the things that they can't do because the servers are so overloaded that they're a low priority. Once the servers aren't overloaded anymore, you're going to be looking at almost, I would say, a completely new game. Like, not only are all of our frames going to be better and the game's going to look amazing, but you're going to have AI that's working. You're going to have a dynamic economy eventually once they spin that up. So a lot to look forward in the new year. Hopefully it's coming within the next year. We'll see, because while I think it's easier tech to solve than persistent AE streaming, it's still going to have its growing pains. So don't hold your breath, but next year, hopefully, snort that hopium, because it's what we got. Anvil Legionnaire. So right now, this is just the narrative team in the VCA, vehicle concept artists. This was just the work for the concept release. They're going to start working on this year, apparently. So Legionnaire next year, or not this year, next year, 2024. And Post on Tokyo. So I see the 12 over here, like right here on week 12 of quarter 4, no downstream teams on it. And I was thinking, okay, well, apparently they're just kind of moving those guys, or I think it's one guy and one lead that's kind of keeping track of them working on this. And I think what I was thinking they were going to do was, okay, we need to pull you off to work on Squadron 42 ships and stuff like that. So, kind of dink around with Sentoki when you have a chance, but we'll release it next year. Now it's looking like they're going to release it this year. So maybe. I still think that all of the new UI things, or at least a good number of them, could be dropping on us in this year. Like, that would be a good thing to drop in here. You look at these things, there's nothing here that's really game breaking. I could see the salvage structural kind of being a little tricky, but releasing ships and hair and cargo containers, all of that's pretty much in the game right now. It's just a matter of scale. So I could see them doing a big UI dump on us. A big steamy dump. So here's the Argo SRV. You can sort of see that, like the Impost on Tokyo, no downstream teams on that. So there's no audio, there's no VFX, there's no GFX, but it seems to have all of those things in the PTU. So I think they just weren't updating the gyro, or they're doing everything else. And also we've seen tractor beams in the PTU on, I know, the Caterpillar. I think somebody was using one on the Cutlass. Don't quote me on that, but a lot of the ships, I was thinking that they would just roll it out for like the SRV and the C1 Spirit. But it looks like they're trying to give all of the ships that have tractor beams working tractor beams, which is ambitious. Artificial gravity, I don't think we're getting this year. I've been saying for a while that I would expect them to roll out the engineering patch, the engineering game loop with resource management and all of that, after they roll out Pyro. So once they get server meshing working to the point where they're confident joining in Pyro, which I think will be by March, by then they should have enough testing done in the PTU to do it. The next patch will probably be the engineering patch. It'll either be the engineering patch around June, or June will be a cleanup patch for the server meshing patch, and then we'll get it around September. So we'll find out. So I did pop open the Boreal Stalker here. So this is like the Yeti thing that lives on Microtech. It's a genetically engineered super creature, basically. But once we get server meshing and AI and NPCs are working correctly, that also includes these critters. So the Boreal Stalker, the Space Cow, the Space Whale. The actual assets have been done for a while. They didn't want the Boreal Stalker T-posing out in the woods and have people just walk up and punch it to death. Would kind of defy the purpose. Bounty Hunter V2. This is one I'm surprised we didn't hear about CitizenCon, because it looks like it's pretty far along, but it does look like it's going to push into next year. I think Bounty Hunter would be a good loop to drop either with Pyro or shortly thereafter. Just Bounty Hunter would be a very good one to drop with Pyro, because unlike bounty hunting in Stanton, where you just fly to a bunker, walk down, shoot a person, or shoot down someone in the sky, if you're a bounty hunter in Pyro, you're a really unpopular person, and you will probably have NPC pirates shooting at you the entire time you're flying to your target. You might be able to blend in somehow, but bounty hunting in Pyro is going to be hard mode. But I do think that that one is coming next year sometime, maybe with Pyro, maybe one after. So Squadron 42 has entered polishing stage. So all of these are frozen now, and they've got a new item down below that that sort of takes over the whole thing of the polishing process. I'll get there in a minute. Character career. So with the new hair, we're probably going to be getting at least a portion of the new character creator. I don't think that they dump the assets into the old creator, but they might. We'll see. We'll see come December. So the Crusader Spirit, we know we're getting the C1 this coming patch, which probably going to drop with IAE. Not much to say there. We're still missing the E1, but that won't come until they do passenger missions, and they're not going to do passenger missions until NPCs are working right. NPCs aren't going to be working right until the server tech gets online. Cutting tier 2, I'm sort of surprised they didn't talk about this, but they could drop this on us any point between now and I'd say March, just the multi-tool doing all the things the multi-tool is supposed to do. They should have a lot of assets for Squadron 42, so you would think that they could bring some of those things over. They're probably handing it off to the PU mission teams just to sort of come up with ideas. Like Squadron 42 is story driven, so that when you go through the level, you're only going through that level that one time to advance the storyline. In an MMO, you could be visiting a place over and over and over and over and over again. What happens when you cut out the grate to get into a place, and you do that once and you come back and it's fixed? Is it going to be fixed or is it going to be open? Those are some of the things that they need to chew on before bringing it into the PU, and I'm sure they already have. EVA Tier 2. So in theory, this has been done for a while. We know they're still working on it to a certain extent, but this is one that could be dropping on us again anytime between 3.21.1 and 3.23 or 4.0 or whatever. We could be getting this at any point, hopefully sooner rather than later. I would love to see it in 3.22, because the EVA model that we've had since I think 3.16 is where they updated it, where it just became wild, where you could no longer boost while you were in EVA, so you couldn't move fast, and you'd hit something and you would just twirl all over the place. That's a little bit better, but basically it's still a bad EVA model. New one looks amazing. FPS radar and scanning, sort of the same thing. Whenever we get the new UI, especially the new visors and all of that, FPS radar and scanning will be on that. There's a lot of things in kind of the visor HUD UI that should be coming pretty soon. But again, anytime between now and March, I would say. 3.22 would make a lot of sense if they've got it polished to that point. Freight elevators. So this is one that's probably closer to March. Freight elevators, persistent hangars. The next round of cargo running will all be taking place in the same thing. They have it here ending in December, but that's just how far they've got the sprints planned. So still got a little ways to go with that one. Map and radar system rework. Again, that's another one that's going to be with the whole new UI. Hopefully we're getting it in 3.22. It could be much further down the line, depending on how much polish they've had to do. 132 weeks for reference is almost 3 years of dev time. So hopefully they're pretty close to getting it to us. It would be awesome to get it for 3.22. Since 3.22 looks like a pretty simple patch. MFD rework, same situation. Mobileglass rework, same situation. New missions for cargo hauling. I would assume that would come. You would think that would come with 322. Only reason it might not is if they're trying to launch it with persistent hangars and the freight elevators just kind of have a cargo patch where they drop all of that once. If that's the case, they might actually finish this deliverable and then not give it to us until the rest of the tech is ready to go. New mission State Heist. This is one that we're getting for 321.1 apparently. And let's see, this is going to be the one where infiltrating locations often held by NPCs, reaching data stores, and then setting an upload to offsite handlers. So this one will be the one where you walk up to the kiosk and you keep the upload going while bad guys are pouring in, your friends shoot them. That's going to be what this one is. New missions restoration contracts. So this is one that we haven't heard about lately. What this is the opposite of the salvage missions. In this one, they'll be giving you a ship and they'll be like, you need to put a skin on it, put the components in it, and get it up and running, and you'll be paid for it. Whether they have the stuff on site and you just do it, or if you're going to have to go out, salvage things, and then come back and do it yourself. So you do all of the legwork. Don't know. Looks like an interesting mission, particularly for those that are salvage repair people. Should be a pretty cool mission. Origin G12. So this is Origin's rover, which is a hair smaller than the Ursa. You think about Cyclone size, but it's got an enclosed canopy or a cockpit, which is nice. 2-person. Pretty cool. Definitely not wrapping here. So that one probably closer to March. Wouldn't be shocked if they're dropping that one with Invictus in March. Origin X1, we're getting this one for 322, so Merry Christmas. We'll get all 3 versions. We've been waiting on this one for a while. For the longest time, I thought that they were going to release it with the 600i Gold Standard, but we haven't heard about the 600i Gold Standard for, let's see, since Q1 of 2022 was the last time they did work on the 600i standard that we know about. Would have been nice. Would have been nice to get them both at once, but for whatever reason, I think they switched gears and decided that they're going to focus on RSI first, and then they'll probably have a MISC gear because the MISC ships are really dated at this point. Like the Freelancer and the Starfare, badly needed, so it's probably going to be RSI's year, the MISC's year. Then they'll probably start doing the Origin ships, because really the 300 is fine, the 100 is fine, the 600 needs some help, the 890 is a little bit dated but still pretty good. So not a lot of Origin ships. They might be able to wrap it in with a couple other ships that are manufacturers that kind of need an update pass. Some of the older Drake ships come to mind, like the Cutlass. But Origin X1, yeah, easy. Again, no downstream teams, but get a bike done by here, easy. Persistent hangers, so I was talking about this one earlier. They have it locking off it in December. It's not going to be done in December. Persistent streaming and server meshing. Wrapped here, it didn't wrap here. This thing's probably going to go for another year. We're going to get a version of it early. So this is going to be one of those cases where we get it in, say, 322, but they're going to keep working on it for probably the next year. They kind of do the same thing with persistent streaming. But yeah, this right here, if you want to look for any indicator of the health of the project, this is the one that you want to watch. Visor HUD. In theory, wrap right now. We'll have to take a look at it. I would say in about around IAE, if this hasn't jumped out again, we might be getting that one for 322, and that would be amazeballs. Quantum simulation. So this is what I was talking about. They are still working on it, but I would not be shocked if Tony's team is being pulled over to kind of hook in the NPCs, like I was saying, into server meshing, just to make sure they're all acting right in subsumption. So basically just kind of their day-to-day activities before they roll up quantum simulation, which is a whole nother level of complexity. This is going to be waiting on server meshing. Resource management, this is the one that's going to be the keystone to the engineering game loop, but also to a lot of other game loops. Yeah, just this week 12 in December means that it's going into next year 9 times out of 10. The Apollo was surprisingly not mentioned during SitCon because we know they're working on it. Unless it was one of the blurry ships in that sort of yellow slide by where they were showing all the ships they were going to work on. I did have a theory that the thing that looked a little bit like the Spirit, which I still think it's the Spirit. Hold on, let me show you a picture. So you look at this image here. This looks almost identical to that side shot. Hang on, let me show that to you. So yes, I do know that X said that this was the Nautilus. This can't be the Nautilus. That is a person right there. The Nautilus is huge. The Nautilus is the size of the Polaris. It is a big ship. It's a 7 crew ship. So it's definitely not the Nautilus. What I'm thinking it is the E1. Because you look at that, same silhouette. And this is the C1, but yeah, I think it's the E1. I think that is one of the Spirits because that silhouette is identical to that. So yeah, the only thing that's a little confusing is this back here looks like an elevator. Gruntling swore that one of the early talks about the Spirit said that it had an elevator. I couldn't find that, but it wouldn't shock me. But these could be cargo pods in the background. They're just kind of throwing things off, but I think that this is the Spirit. It does look a lot like it. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think that is the Spirit. I wanted it to be the Apollo, but in that whole little slider thing, they didn't have a ship that could be the Apollo. So if they did a complete redesign on the Apollo to make it more closely match the Galaxy and the Zeus, then this could be, but I'd be surprised if they divorced themselves from the style guide of the Manus, the Constellation, the Aurora, all of those ships this much. Like, maybe, but I doubt it, but it's possible. So that was my dark horse for possibly being the Apollo, but I think it's the C or the E1. Moving on, RSI Polaris. Speaking of RSI ships, we're not getting in December. This is just as far as they've had the sprint planned. They mentioned that on this one that all these ships are ones that they were going to be working on or getting to us within the next 12 months. They meant 2024. I could see the Polaris landing in our hands for next year's IAE, so around November of 2024. I could see the Polaris getting to us. Zeus Mark II. Couple weeks, they're going to start working on the cargo variant. And I would assume the Explorer variant, they could probably roll at least 2 of them out pretty quick. The Explorer or the combat variant might require a little bit more work, kind of like how we got the Scorpius and then we got the Scorpius Antares a couple months later. Could be a similar situation. Given it's a freelancer size ship, I would say SitCon next year is relatively easy. I don't think that would be hard. Salvage vehicle munching. You can see this one's ending about here. I do think that this is part of the, what did they call it? Salvage structural. I think that this is in part salvage structural because it's using the grinder, which is vehicle munching. I just don't think it'll be using the tractor beams to pull stuff in and then eat it that way, I think you'll be dragging the beams across the structure. It'll be turning it in that way. I don't know. But yeah, vehicle munching, slightly different. Related, but different. Security Network V1. This is one that I was kind of surprised that we didn't hear about, this and hacking, especially with them putting the Legionnaire in the mix. The Legionnaire is going to utilize hacking in order to board other ships. So you would think we would have heard about Security Network V1, but they're probably just going to give us an ISC or something next year. That would be a good one to roll out with bounty hunting. So whenever we start getting bounty hunting is probably when we'll see the Legionnaire, and this would be my guess. Ship Trespass, you can see that they've got it more or less done. The weird thing is that the people that were working on it was the narrative team. So I'm not sure if they're just working out like the law side of it. But yeah, the narrative team has been the ones working on this lately. But yeah, you go on someone's ship and you're not part of their party, they can gank you and not get a crime stat. Sliding. This is all the new traversal things. So you've got climbing a ladder, sliding, the new prone, EVA. I'm forgetting one. Mantling is in the game now, like the improved mantling and climbing up. Stairs? Something like that. But anyway, we could be getting all of those traversal things, or they might trickle them out to us a couple of patch. But they looked pretty far along and pretty polished, so we should be seeing them pretty soon. I missed this, but solar bursts, some people that are testing in Pyro right now have actually gotten hit by some of these solar bursts. And I think if you're not inside, either inside a ship or landed somewhere, I think even if you're in a ship, you're in trouble if one of those things hit you. It gives you a fair amount of warning, but yeah, if you're near a station where you've got a bad reputation with them, you might be screwed. You might you might be needing that SRV to tow your butt in. Squadron 42 polishing. This is the one that you watch for Squadron 42. That over the next year, this is what they're going to be doing. I'm sure they're aiming for end of next year. You wouldn't move into the polishing phase until then. But CR is not going to release Squadron 42, or he's not going to be doing the gold prints until he is positive that it is not going to release like Cyberpunk did, like Starfield did, like any of the modern games where it's just a trashy mess for like a year and then it salvages itself. No Man's Sky. I could go on. Like most modern games are released in a broken state and then fixed over time. Squadron 42 would not survive that. Not with the crowd out there that wants to see this project fail. I'll put it that way. That none of those other projects had a community that was actively rooting for the project to fail. Subsumption, this is what I was talking about, that I think Tony Z and gang are actually switching up to do the Subsumption editor as opposed to Quana, just to kind of make sure that all the NPC activities that are currently in the game are functioning correctly, and then they'll move on to a much more complicated, convoluted Quana system. Swimming Tier 0, that's another. Surprisingly, with all the stuff they were talking about with water, they did not show off swimming. Not even in Squadron 42, and we know it's in Squadron 42. So, mocap team isn't on there, which is interesting. But actor feature team and the actor tech team could easily do keyframe animations for swimming. I mean, it's breaststroke isn't that hard to animate. And since your character is usually obscured by the artifacts in the water, shouldn't be a problem. When will we get it? Don't know. It'd be a good one to drop with the new water, though. Tracking app, that's one that's going to drop with bounty hunting. Again, probably next year after they drop Pyro. The next patch, unless they have to have a cleanup patch, will probably be the bounty hunting patch. Tumbrel Stank, shouldn't be a problem getting in 321. I don't think anyone has shown off the storm in the patch yet. In the PTU patch. Might still be polishing it. I knew they were having some issues with the tracks. So some interesting things here. So they said that they moved the Galaxy off, or not the Galaxy, the Zeus, and the other. So the Zeus, and which the Zeus must have been in concept for a while, but we know that the Cutter Scout was out there. This one is the Cutter Expedition. We don't know what this 34-week one is. That's probably going to be a bigger ship. Hopefully it's this one. And what I really, really, really hope this is a Banu ship. But that right there, I can't tell if that's a thruster or not. And this does look a lot like Mirai's style guide. It doesn't look like a Banu ship. So it's probably not a Banu ship. That is pure hopium on my part. But don't know what this is. 34 weeks. Going to be a medium, large ship. They always roll a bigger ship out on us for IAE, and this is the EU vehicle content team, which is interesting. It's not concept, it's the content team. So that's 34 weeks for straight to flyable. I wonder if that's that little tiny micro bike. That'd be a cool one to get. I don't know if you saw that. This one right here. That'd be about 34 weeks. It's cool, whatever it is. 34 weeks for straight to flyable. Yeah, that's something small. I would not be surprised. There's a couple concepts sort of buried in here that have been buried there for years. It's totally possible that they're going to drop a big concept on us, and it's just one of these that's been sitting out there for a while. Underground facilities. I would think these would probably come with the bounty hunting patch, would be a good fit. Just kind of, these things are playgrounds in a box, basically, for trade locations, everything else. I don't think it would come out with Pyro, but it might. I think immediately following Pyro would make sense, but depending on how far out from Pyro we are, if it's March, we could be getting underground facilities with Pyro, because these won't break the game. It's not a game loop. It is a location, which are easier to pull off. Vehicle tractor beams, they're looking and working pretty well in the PTU. I mean, it's not a big shocker since we've had the hand tractor tools for a couple of years now, and they work. How they work is pretty well understood, but I mean, people are tossing PTVs, the little buggies, around. So yeah, vehicle tractor beams, they're working. Weapon misfire and wear, no idea when we get this one. This one looks like it's pretty far along. Pretty sure they'll roll it into squadron, then we'll get it a few months later. I'd say March to June would be a good one for weapon misfire and wear. We still don't know how we fix weapons, which might be something they have to implement first. And gang, that's all I got for this time. Let me know if you have any questions down below or any comments. Again, yeah, this portion of this vid, and CIG finally released it, is really interesting because there's a couple things on here that we just have no idea what they are. I think this is going to be an Alien Week one. Fingers crossed for Banu, but it really looks more like Human or Xi'an, but Xi'an go vertically unless they change their mind on that. So who the hell knows? That's obviously the Zeus. I still say that is one of the spirits. Let me know if you think I'm way off base with that. I know for a fact it's not the Nautilus, though. This is kind of a big one because it's modularity. They said modularity was going to come with the Retaliator, that they had basically solved it. This is the Retaliator, so yeah, modularity sometime next year. So let me know what you think. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and catch me next time.